Hey gang, I'm Drew and welcome back to Marvelous Videos. As we know, the Green Lantern Corps protects the universe with willpower, which makes it really fitting that its greatest enemies are forces that learn how to weaponize fear, rage, death, and the Corps' own forgotten sins. Green Lantern villains aren't just bizarre crooks with strange weapons, they're on a whole other level. Some are failed cosmic police, some are weapon manufacturers, and there's also a literal living emotional embodiments and antimatter gods on the list. And of course, there are former Lanterns who turn the Corps' very own rulebook against it. And this isn't ranking of just Hal Jordan's personal enemies, which would be a much longer list. This is a proper list about the Green Lantern Corps, and every name here is known for its impact on the Corps itself. The Guardians of the Universe, the planet Oa, the emotional spectrum orb, universe-wide order that the Lanterns are sworn to defend. Also, the timing couldn't be better because Green Lantern's having a moment, by which I mean it's finally getting a good live-action adaptation. The first episode of HBO's Lanterns premiered with plenty of positive reviews and one heartbreaking cliffhanger. And the show has also confirmed two names on this very list, Sinestro and the Manhunters. So let's count down from 10 to 1, the villains who best threatened everything the Green Lanterns stand for. Let's engage. The Weaponers of Qward, the people who armed fear. First off is a group, fittingly enough. First appearing in Green Lantern Volume 2, Number 2, Qward is a world in the antimatter universe, and its dominant society is that of the Weaponers. They're an ancient guild of inventors and armorers whose whole history is basically defined by their opposition to the Guardians and the positive matter universe that those Guardians protect. Basically, if the Green Lanterns is a symbol of order, Qward is the forge that makes weapons to break that order. The reason they're such a major threat is that being master craftsmen, they're capable of building weapons specifically designed to counter Owen technology. Also, and this is pretty crucial, the color yellow, the historic weakness of Green Lanterns, and the color of fear is tied to Qward. It was actually on Qward that Sinestro obtained his very first yellow power ring, the antimatter counterpart to a Green Lantern ring. And yeah, we'll be getting to Sinestro in this video. Their defining role comes in the Green Lantern Sinestro Corps Special Number 1 in 2007, which is about the launch of the Sinestro Corps War. That story makes it clear that Sinestro's Fear Army isn't built by one man alone. He in fact draws on antimatter resources, Qwardian manufacturing, and mass-produced yellow power rings, which can be built only by a civilization of master weaponsmiths. The Weaponers belong on this list because they prove that the war on the Corps isn't just a vague cosmic or emotional battle. It also gets fought on technological and political frontiers. The Weaponers are essentially the supply chain of fear. They're why a single rogue ex-Lantern was able to go from lone fugitive to the commander of an interstellar force that could match the Green Lanterns ring for ring and become the Corps' worst enemy. But that's for much later. Volthoom, the first Lantern. Long before the Green Lantern Corps existed, before the Guardians ever handed out a single ring, there was one mortal being who knew the full power of the emotional spectrum. His name is Volthoom. He's known as the First Lantern, and yes, he's absolutely a villain. Volthoom came from a whole other reality, being a traveler who, along with his mother, had discovered the electromagnetic emotional spectrum and built a travel lantern to move through time and space. His journey brought him into contact with the earliest Owens, and it went completely and catastrophically wrong. He managed to claim their primal energy artifact, the Great Heart, and even put on the universe's first power ring. But that direct and unfiltered connection to the infinite emotional spectrum overloaded his mind, drove him completely insane, and turned him into a violent tyrant. We know that usually a Lantern is bound to a single color and a single emotion, but Volthoom could now wield the entire spectrum at once. He manipulates memories, rewrites personal histories, feeds on emotional conflict, and destabilizes reality itself around the Lanterns he torments. His defining story is Green Lantern: Wrath of the First Lantern, which is the finale of Jeff Johns' 9-year run on the characters. Freed by the corrupted Guardians, Volthoom tries to remake the universe by tearing through the lives and memories of the Lanterns, which ultimately forces every color of the Corps to desperately unite against him in one last stand. Volthoom belongs here because he isn't just another cosmic villain who happens to punch a Green Lantern. He's the dark prototype of the entire concept, the first mortal given too much emotional power with no restraint whatsoever, and the living proof of what happens when that line is crossed. Basically, he's like if Adam had become evil and tried to massacre the humans that came after him and Eve. Volthoom's very existence is why the Guardians came to fear emotions so deeply that they had to write a policy around their fear. The Manhunters, the Guardians' first and bloodiest mistake. Before there were Green Lanterns, there were the Manhunters, and their story is the original sin the entire Corps was built to atone for. And somehow, this is a very common mistake, but these are not the Martian Manhunters. Back when the Guardians of the Universe first decided to bring order to the cosmos, they didn't choose living beings to carry out their mission. Instead, they built an army of androids, the Manhunters, robotic enforcers programmed to carry out the Guardians' directives without hesitation without conscience, and without mercy, and they'd never get tired. It wasn't really about heroism, it was about ruthless and unfeeling enforcement on a galactic scale. As expected, it went wrong, horribly so. A flaw in their programming turned them against the very lives they were meant to protect. Their most infamous atrocity directly links to the Sinestro Core War era around Green Lantern Volume 4, where the Manhunters massacred all life in Space Sector 666, wiping out entire worlds. Only 5 beings in that sector survived, later becoming the 5 inversions, and one of them was going to carry that grief for eons, and not in a healthy way. That's why the Manhunters rank so high despite being faceless machines. Their failure created the Core itself because the Guardians replaced them with living lanterns who could feel and therefore choose. But their massacre also caused the tragic backstory of the survivor who become one of the Core's greatest enemies. The Manhunters are dangerous in 2 directions at once, as enemies and as proof that the Guardians' obsession with order is the very reason behind many of the disasters that Green Lanterns are later set to clean up. Atrocitus, the Red Lantern who made rage into an army. And here is that survivor. Atrocitus, born Atros, was one of the 5 inversions, aka one of the 5 beings who lived through the Manhunter slaughter of Sector 666. What's the whole point of surviving it if his whole family didn't? He literally had to watch his wife and children burn. A Green Lantern is chosen for the ability to overcome great fear, but Atrocitus became something else entirely, and he created the Red Lantern Core, powered by the red light of rage. And these red rings are seriously horrifying in their mechanics. When a red ring bonds to a wearer, it effectively replaces their heart, forcing their own blood pumping in and out of the corrosive rage plasma in its place. Red Lanterns vomit that burning blood as a weapon and are consumed so completely by fury that most can barely form a coherent thought. Atrocitus literally turned his trauma into a violent interstellar ideology and created an entire army out of the universe's most wronged and vengeful souls. He makes his full debut in Green Lantern Volume 4, arriving near the end of the Sinestro Core War as a living harbinger of the coming Blackest Night and the wider emotional spectrum. So basically, the Red Lanterns are a complete rival Corps born directly from Guardian failure. Their existence is living proof that willpower is just one possible answer to the emotional forces that are secretly governing the universe. Atrocitus absolutely belongs on this list, and that's because he's not just an outside threat. He actively forces the Corps to confront the consequences of the Guardian's own past. Black Hand, the man who opened the door to death. For decades, William Hand was almost a joke. When Black Hand debuted in Green Lantern Volume 2, number 29 in 1964, he was nothing but a small-time criminal, who was notable only because he had an energy-absorbing device that could siphon a Green Lantern's power and fire it back at the Core. He was a B-list villain who was little more than an inconvenient menace. Then, Jeff Johns got a hold of him and turned him into the vessel for the apocalypse. I'm not even joking. In the modern era, Black Hand becomes obsessed with death itself, and I mean like totally fixated on it, and is reborn as the earthly agent of a far greater power, the cosmic god of death, who's also on this list, by the way. As Hand gains a direct connection to the black light of death, he's able to drain emotional energy, raise the deceased, and create, as well as command, an army of the risen dead. His defining moment comes in Green Lantern Volume 4, number 43 in 2009, the issue that starts off the Blackest Night. This is where William Hand becomes the human gateway through which the black light floods into the living universe, where the dead begin to rise wearing black rings. Black Hand absolutely earns a spot on this list. I mean, he literally makes death itself a direct Green Lantern problem. The Black Lantern Corps he helps unleash forces every single color of the emotional spectrum, green, yellow, red, and the rest, to confront their own resurrected allies and enemies weaponized against them. He proves that even the full spectrum of emotion can be attacked and conquered by something that feeds on the end of all feeling and has been undefeated for all of human history. Krona, the Guardian who broke the universe first. Every mythology has an original sin, and for the Green Lantern Corps, it's the story of Krona. He isn't an invader or an alien warlord, he's one of the Guardians' his own kind. He did more lasting damage than almost any outsider ever could. Krona was an Owen scientist from the race that would go on to become the Guardians of the Universe, and he became consumed by one forbidden question. What did the beginning of the universe look like? His people had an absolute law against seeking the answer to this, but Krona, you guessed it, ignored it. Debuting all the way back in Green Lantern Volume 2, number 40 in 1965, created by John Broome and Gil Kane, Krona built a machine to pierce the temporal barrier and gaze upon the dawn of creation. Yeah, so he solved time travel. As it always happens when you fly too close to the sun, his experiment crashed and burned. He glimpses the hand of creation, his machine explodes, and in the original story, he unleashes evil into the cosmos. Later, retellings connect his experiment to the creation of the multiverse. The exact way this played out has been rewritten across DC's many reboots, but the core truth never changes. And that's why Krona matters so much. His danger isn't a ring or clever weapons. It's having knowledge without limit, forbidden secrets, guardian-level scientist, mastery of universal energies, virtual immortality, you name it. Not to mention, he's living evidence that the Guardians themselves helped give rise to the universe's greatest dangers. His existence is basically the eternal warning at the heart of the Green Lantern lore, that knowledge pursued without restraints can be more destructive than any invading army. The Anti-Monitor, the god who joined the Sinestro Corps. Now we reach the super powerful beings that operate on such a scale that the whole Corps can, and frequently does, get erased. The Anti-Monitor has a pretty complicated story, but I'll tell it as simply as I can. He's the antimatter universe's counterpart to the benevolent Monitor, and is a cosmic god who feeds on life energy and hungers to devour the entire positive matter universe. His power is way beyond that of any ordinary Lantern threat. I mean, he conquered the antimatter universe itself, and he's literally a god. He consumes worlds whole, manipulates cosmic energies beyond any human or alien comprehension, raises armies out of shadow demons, and can unravel or rewrite reality across multiple universes at once. Simply put, the Anti-Monitor is easily one of the most powerful villains DC has ever published in its long history. And the reason why he ranks so high as a Green Lantern villain happens to be a very bloody story. Crisis on Infinite Earths number 6 from 1985 marks the Anti-Monitor's first full appearance during a crisis that devastates entire universes. It's a staggering threat that proves even the universe's intergalactic police force can be put at risk when an enemy is operating on a multiversal scale. Then, decades later, he returns during the Sinestro Corps War, where he becomes one of the Sinestro Corps' most powerful allies. This little alliance is exactly why he's on our list, because it's really easy to treat him as a crisis villain who's just making his murderous way through the DC roster. The Anti-Monitor becomes part of an extinction-level assault on the modern Green Lantern Corps. He ranks this high because he's threatened creation on a scale nearly every other villain on this list only dreams about. Then he brought that power directly into the Sinestro Corps War against the Green Lanterns. And he's not even one of their main villains. Woof! Parallax, the fear inside the central power battery. Some villains attack the Corps from the outside. Parallax attacks the one resource every single Green Lantern has to depend on from the moment they sign up: the ability to overcome fear itself. Parallax has a two-part identity, and you need both to understand it. Originally, Parallax was the villain name taken by Hal Jordan himself after the destruction of his home, Coast City, devastated him and led to a terrible fall from grace in the 1990s. But years later, Green Lantern Rebirth changed the whole thing, or rather recontextualized it. Parallax, it turned out, was never just a broken man who happened to be a Green Lantern. It's the ancient primordial entity of fear, a cosmic parasite of pure yellow energy that had possessed Hal when he was at his lowest, amplifying his trauma and bending him to its will. Its power then is possession, which makes sense because being afraid is maybe one of the most common emotions we feel, and one that every species feels. Parallax feeds on exactly that fear and can seize control of even the mightiest hosts. Most importantly, it was imprisoned inside the central power battery on Oa, which powers every Green Lantern ring. This is the real reason for the infamous yellow impurity, aka why Green Lantern rings couldn't affect the color yellow. The Guardians had literally locked the embodiment of fear inside the Corps' own power source, and its presence created the yellow impurity that left the ring vulnerable to yellow. The reveal happens in Green Lantern Rebirth number 3 in 2005, where Jeff Johns unveils Parallax as the fear entity behind both the yellow impurity and Hal's fall. Parallax ranks nearly at the very top because it doesn't threaten one lantern. It threatens the basic principle that is the literal foundation of the whole damn Corps. Sinestro may be at the top, but he just uses fear as a tool, while Parallax is fear itself, given a body and a will, and it exists to corrupt every Green Lantern who ever swore the oath. Nekron, the darkness waiting after every lantern dies. Remember that cosmic god of death the Black Hand was serving? Yep, we're at Nekron. If Parallax is fear given form, Nekron is death personified and given a throne on top of that. He's the Death Force, the ruler of a shadowy realm bordering the afterlife, and is arguably the closest the Green Lantern mythos has ever come to an unbeatable enemy. I mean, obviously, right? Billions of years of life, and death has been the constant for every species on this planet. Nekron first appeared in Tales of the Green Lantern Corps number 2 back in 1981 as the Lord of the Unliving. Obviously, he's not a conventional warlord with a home planet and some small army. He's tied to death and the void beyond, drawing power from and commanding the souls of every being who has ever died. Most importantly, in the modern era, he's revealed as the true mastermind behind the Blackest Night. Also, he looks like a skeleton. Using Black Hand as his gateway into the living world, Nekron raises the Black Lantern Corps, an army of resurrected heroes, villains, and fallen lanterns. Their corpses reanimated and turned into weapons that feed on the emotions of the living. Here, we get to know that his plan isn't conquest. That would be way too simple. No, it's extinction. Nekron wants there to be no living universe left at all. His defining moment is the finale, Blackest Night, number 8 in 2010. In it, something unprecedented and awesome happens. Every single color of the emotional spectrum, green, yellow, red, orange, blue, indigo, and violet, is forced into a desperate alliance, culminating in the emergence of the White Lantern Light of Life itself, to finally push death back and defeat Nekron. Nekron rates second here on this list because, unlike Sinestro, he doesn't want to rule the universe. He just wants to end all life, including the emotional life that gives every core its very purpose. He's the ultimate threat, not just to humanity, but also to the entire order that the Green Lantern Corps is built upon. Sinestro, the Green Lantern Corps' perfect enemy. Come on, for number 1, there was only ever one choice. Sinestro is the definitive Green Lantern villain, because he was the definitive Green Lantern hero first. Debuting in Green Lantern Volume 2, Number 7 in 1961, created by John Broome and Gil Kane, Sinestro of Qward was once considered the single greatest lantern the Corps had ever produced in its entire history. He was so respected that he was chosen to train a promising rookie named Hal Jordan. But his obsession with order mutated into tyranny, and he turned his own homeworld into a police state. When the Guardians discovered it, they stripped him of his ring and cast him out. He did not take that well. That's what makes him so uniquely dangerous. Like, okay, sure, Sinestro is sinister and he wields yellow fear energy, turning terror itself into constructs and striking directly at the philosophical weak points of our Green Lantern. But his real weapon, like Krona, is insider knowledge. He knows core law. He knows Owen technology. He knows ring psychology, Guardian politics, all of it. And more than that, he knows the Lanterns individually. He knows exactly the fear that every Lantern has to conquer can be thrown back on them. And in the Green Lantern Sinestro Corps Special number 1, he weaponizes every single thing he's got in his arsenal. He founds the Sinestro Corps, a mirror image armory of fear ring bearers recruited from the most terrifying beings in the universe. It's essentially an interstellar police force built for the sole purpose of destroying the Green Lantern Corps, and this Sinestro Corps is basically an empire in itself. Every other villain on this list can threaten the Green Lanterns, scare them, even destroy them. But Sinestro proves that a Green Lantern can be their greatest threat ever, even beyond cosmic gods of destruction and death. And that's exactly why he's one of the first villains this series is bringing to television. HBO's Lanterns, which premiered on August 16th, 2026, features Ulrich Thompson as Sinestro. He hasn't shown up in person yet as of episode 1, but we've seen him in teasers and trailers, mentioned as a former Green Lantern and Hal Jordan's one-time mentor, who went rogue and got corrupted by yellow fear energy after a failed coup. It's a pretty perfect summary of the character, but just don't assume that the show will follow the comics. It's telling its own story, and I can't wait to see it unfold over the next few weeks. Honestly, the first thing that immediately jumps to my mind is that so many of these threats came from inside the Corps' own history. The Manhunters were the Guardians' first failed police force. Atrocitus was born from their massacre. Krona and Volthoom exposed the danger of Owen technology and control. Parallax was hiding inside the central power battery the whole time. And Sinestro is the Corps' own greatest champion turned into its greatest enemy. Then, above even those, sit the true cosmic horrors. The Anti-Monitor who can erase the Corps through sheer overwhelming power, and Nekron who can end the very emotional life that gives every Corps its reason to exist. They were created to bring order to the universe. Its greatest villains are terrified because most of them were created by that same system, or learned exactly how to break it. Honestly, forget keeping intergalactic peace. What the Green Lantern Corps really does is keep making its own worst nightmares. Right now, Lanterns has confirmed Sinestro and the Manhunters. None of the remaining villains have been announced for the show, but never fear, anything is possible, and it just gives us more to anticipate as we continue our foray into the show and the wider DCU. So, let me know in the comments, which Green Lantern threat should HBO and the DCU introduce next? Atrocitus? Black Hand? Parallax? Nekron? Somebody else entirely? And who's your favorite Green Lantern villain of all? If you liked the video, be sure to hit like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more of our marvelous videos. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, and as always, stay marvelous.